In the previous video, we talked about the super elevation diagram and the super elevation managed model, and also how we could modify that super elevation diagram. We also talked about the constraints that exist on the super elevation control line. Now, in order to modify those constraints, we have to use another tool to do that. We can't modify the constraints directly in our super elevation view here. We actually have to go into the super elevation table editor to perform those changes or modify those constraints. We can also make changes to stations and slopes as well using the super elevation table editor. So this is just another way that we can modify our super elevation. So in this particular exercise, we're going to take a look at reviewing and modifying our constraints that exist in this particular super elevation drawing. So to get to the super elevation table editor, we need to go up to our super elevation panel here and go and select our super elevation editor. So I'm going to select that tool. It's going to prompt us to locate our super elevation section. So I'm going to select our super elevation section. And what's going to appear here is our super elevation diagram once again. And then down here we have a table format of all of our super elevation transitions. So you can see column 1 here lists our super elevation lane names, and column 2. And we have our stations, we have our curve sets, our cross slopes, our transitions, our pivot edge, all the useful information that we assigned to our super elevation lanes. So you'll also notice some information is grayed out, and that typically means there's some kind of constraint set on super elevation points. So for example, if we take a look at this particular station here at 571 plus 25, you can see this one here is available for editing because it's not grayed out. The slope's available for editing. That's because there's no constraint set on that particular super elevation point there. But if we go over here and we take a look at the 577 plus 40, and you can see the cross slope here is grayed out. We can't do anything with it. If we click in there, it's not letting us edit it. That's because there's a cross slope constraint on that particular slope. So if we expand this box a little bit, you can see the slope constraint here was cross slope, and it's set at 4%. So if you recall previously, we made a change to this slope. Originally it was 3.8%, and when we made that change in the previous video, it automatically updated this cross slope as well. So the reason why it updated this cross slope was because of this constraint. So this had a cross slope constraint on it that was constrained back to this particular point here. So very important to understand how some of these constraints work when you're making changes. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to make some cross slope changes again. So I'm going to come into my station over here at 571.25, and this time we're going to change this 4% slope to be 3.5. Now once again, notice the cross slope underneath, the other full super cross slope, it's still set at 4%, but it's grayed out. So we're going to change this one here to 3.5, and then when we make that change, we should see the next row here, the cross slope at 577 plus 40 will also update. Now also notice how the super elevation managed model or the diagram updates down here in our super elevation managed view. Notice the super elevation diagram in the super elevation editor. This one isn't really dynamic, it's more of a static view, just kind of gives you a picture of what's actually inside of this table. So you can't really modify these points directly in this view here. It's just kind of a static picture based on the information in the table here. Now if you don't want to see this view, we can toggle on this little green button here, and that'll collapse the view down, and we can just look at the table and focus solely on the stations and the cross slopes and whatever super elevation information we want to review. So once you're done making changes, you can just close this dialog box and you can continue on. Now to review our changes that we've made, well, the important thing to note is that you can select a lane, and when you select a lane, you'll notice there's some graphic handlers appear inside some dynamic text at the transition area. So we got our stations and our cross slopes. And these little graphical handlers here indicate the direction of the cross slope. So you can see this one's sloping away from our center of our pavement here. Here's the 0 point. And this one here sloping back towards our center line of our road. So those graphical handlers there can actually be selected, and you can move those up and down along your alignment, as well as the graphical text here, the dynamic text. You can also select this text and key in different values as well to perform modifications on your lanes.